welcome to my studio. Today I wanted to make a video about the first sketchbook that I started when I was getting back into my art in around 2019. It is definitely not the best sketchbook I've ever made. It's probably the one that I never would have shared ever if I didn't think it was a little bit important to share how we get started. So to give you a little bit of background, I made a lot of art growing up. That's the only thing I ever wanted to do. I went to college for art. I graduated with a degree, and then I kind of gave up. It was really difficult to figure out how I was going to make it into a career. I had a lot of people telling me that it was impossible and that I should probably go find a real job. So I did. And I kind of left my art behind. I made a few things. I had a show out of college that I worked for, and then I did another really big project, and after that I really let it fall away. So for about 10 years, there was a break. And I think the change came when I took a trip to New Zealand, and it was really inspiring, and it just made me want to get back to art. So and that was in 2017. So of course, then it took a little bit more time thinking about it more, and I really wanted to do it. The problem was I had a full-time job. I didn't have a lot of space. I didn't have a lot of time. So I was really struggling with how to make it work. So I thought, why not start a sketchbook? Because that's the easiest way, and you don't need a lot of time. You don't need a lot of space. You can just pick it up where you went. So that is where this sketchbook came in. I was working on a coffee table. I had been working mostly in oils, and that wasn't going to work for me, so I decided to try watercolors, which I wasn't very good at, and I had only done in high school enough that they were frustrating, and I didn't really ever want to do them again. But they are a little bit more manageable when it comes to space and time, cleanup and toxicity and all that stuff. So I thought I would give it another shot. So this is the book where all that started. Again, it is not by any means my best work. If I had to give it a name, I would call it Lost but Searching. So let's take a look. Okay, so here is this sketchbook. Before we get started, I'll let you know what it is. It's a Pentalic Traveler Sketchbook. It has just regular paper in it. It's probably more of a drawing sketchbook than anything else. Definitely not a watercolor sketchbook. Definitely not so much for painting. I got it because it had a lot of pages in it. It wasn't really expensive, so it didn't have to be perfect, and it was a really good one to start out with, and I actually liked it a lot. The size enough where I have more. I kept going with them. So I made it work for me, and so let's dive in. So I started this around September of 2018. Again, really didn't know what I was doing. A lot of just notes, and I put some pictures in it from my trip to New Zealand. I was going to do something with that, which I never did. They're still exactly like they were when I put them in there. But it was just a way to get started. When you have a blank book, that's probably the hardest part, is to know what to do with it. So I did a few of those. They never really got me anywhere else. Again, I used it for notes, and then I just kind of messed around. It was more of a play, trying to figure out what to do. A lot of ideas that didn't really go anywhere, lyrics to songs, and then I started to explore with watercolor. Like I said, I hadn't really done much. I didn't really like it, but it was a really good way to work in a limited space with not a lot of time. So I signed up for Skillshare, found some classes, and I just started doing stuff that I wanted to try. I drew my dinner making in between work, and then I just started playing with different materials, things that didn't turn out very well. It's hard because I did have such a background in art that it was really hard not to know what to do and to even feel rusty in the things that I did know how to do. I think that one of the problems is that when we start something again after a while, we assume we can just pick up where we left off, and the problem is that we're not the same people. So, you know, I was 10 years older, hadn't been doing it, so I was really rusty. I didn't really know what I liked anymore. I wasn't the same person I was in college. I couldn't just jump back into what I was doing then, so it was really having to find myself all over again. I was just exploring with pen and ink, watercolor things, and then I found these watercolor patterns, and I was really interested in that. It was something that I could just pick up and come back to whenever I needed to, so I could work on them for a little bit and then try them again later. And it really just got me more comfortable with the medium and just trying things, which is probably one of the most important parts. I did some sketching in here. Again, I felt really rusty, even though it was something that I was trained to do, I know how to do. I just didn't know how to put it together, but I was experimenting, and looking back now, some of these exercises with the watercolor actually turned into later on these drawings of flowers, which I did a lot more of. So it did lead somewhere. This was the beginning of that. Again, these were, you know, in the couple hours I had before work or after work, I would just work on something. You know, I'm not sure if it was every day, but I was really trying to be better at it. And I loved doing these little pattern pieces that I could just work on a little at a time, and they didn't feel overwhelming. And I did jump around. I didn't want to be too perfect with everything, and I really just wanted to have fun. And since this was just for me and I didn't really know where it was going at this point, it didn't matter. So I would just do whatever was in front of me. I had flowers, I would draw the flowers. If I was watching TV, I would do these little watercolor pieces. And again, this is not a watercolor sketchbook. This is not meant for this. I think I used bow clips to clip it down, and it was very light, and I was just not worried about it at all, it being perfect or doing it right, any of those things. It was really only for me, these exercises. So, you know, this was around springtime, 2019 that I was working, and I can even see myself like getting better over these days, feeling a little bit more comfortable. I started doing some landscapes from my New Zealand trip. I would often do the same thing, and this is where I started getting into other kinds of paint. So I started using acrylic gouache in my work, and I would go over it with, you know, pen or charcoal, which is interesting because that is something that I do now too with watercolor. But I was really just playing, and I made messes, and it wasn't always great. It was just a way to see where I was at, to get back into it and know that, again, in a sketchbook, it doesn't matter how it comes out. It's just important that you're doing it. So I started getting into a little bit more abstract. I did some florals, again, which I really love now. Working with colors. This is in July of 2019, so, you know, I'm keeping up with it. It's definitely not an everyday practice, but I'm doing something, and I think it gets more frequent as I go, just because I enjoy it so much. And it's a good thing to do, but so many just bad attempts, but you have to do the bad ones before you can get to the good ones. And then this is where I started painting on both sides of the book, which is actually what I do now. So this gets more into this acrylic gouache abstract painting. Again, not knowing what I'm doing, just trying to do something. A little landscape sketch. Yeah, I think this was some rocks that I saw, going with colors, getting into landscapes, some New Zealand again, but working full page, which I really liked, and trying to be really loose with it. Clouds. So, you know, I'm definitely getting better, but also when it comes to the abstract part, I'm not really sure what I'm doing, but I like the colors that I'm trying to work with. We're really just doing whatever. And it's interesting that these kind of led me to this kind of work, putting the abstract and the landscapes together, that this kind of thing fed into that. So you really never know where it's going to go. Just, this is more when I started doing it every day. I would just want to do something. It was a good distraction at the time. Another disaster in my eyes. I know everyone sees them differently, but I just remember at the time being like, what are you doing? You're making a mess. And then I started, I think, getting into a little bit more mindful about what I was doing. Always some good pages and then some bad ones. And so then this started a color series I was doing. So I was going to do each of the colors. This was in October of 2019. So this was my red. I went into yellow, and I used these lines again in my other work. Those kind of came through. Orange, green, which I never liked this one, but I know other people who did, so who's to say? Blue, purple, and then brown. And that's it. So there you have it. That's my first sketchbook, getting into this. I really just want it to be an encouragement that you don't need to know what you're doing before you start, and that the most important part is the doing of it rather than knowing what you're doing. I'm been doing this now for about 5 years, and I've come a long way, and that first sketchbook was instrumental for me getting to where I am now. So while it is not the most beautiful sketchbook visually, it is one of the most beautiful sketchbooks in my heart because of where it has brought me and how it is going. So this is just an encouragement for whatever that it is that you want to do and you feel like it's impossible. Just do it. It doesn't have to be good. It doesn't even have to get you anywhere different, but it's, you know, something that's worth doing. Just begin and it'll bring you where you need to go. So please like and subscribe if you want to see more videos from me. I'm planning on showing you more sketchbooks, more artwork, how I work. And if you have any comments or questions or suggestions, please let me know. And thank you very much for watching. See you next time.